So one of the big talking points over the past few months, and even in the past 12 months, has been the rise of engine shop visit demand. So on the left, I've got a graph here which shows the shop visit events for the narrow body fleet. So we're looking at the CFM 56 family and the V25s, LEAPs, and the GTFs. Now, just to warn you, that graph does not include any of the inspections of the GTFs that you're seeing at the moment. This is just purely a shop visit forecast looking at utilization of the current fleet. And you can see that in the next few years, especially in the next 12 months, you're expecting to see that narrow body demand increase. So 25, 26, and we're hoping that 2028 will be the peak of the shop visit demand. And a lot of that has been driven by the CFM 56-7B for the 737 NGs. And one of the main reasons is, again, you still have that lag from COVID-19, where there was a lot of shop visits that were deferred. Even though we're now a good few years past COVID-19, you are still seeing some of the effects of those pandemic deferred shop visits that are now going in on top of those engines that naturally would hit their interval points at this time. But on top of that, MRO shops are having to cope with that demand. So there is an issue of supply chain issues for spare material and raw material and used serviceable material. Especially, for example, on the CFM 56-7B, where there's a lot of engines going for shop visits, not enough retirements, not enough used material coming into the market there. So, you do encounter engines that will come in, they'll require a part, and they'll have to sit on the shop until a part becomes available. And shop visit slots in general are becoming quite hard to come by. Slots are generally a bit lower at the moment. And again, there's labor issues in the MRO shops. And I think I've talked about this in previous webinars that, again, many MRO shops experienced a slump in demand during COVID-19. And obviously, many of the workforce had to be furloughed or laid off. Some who retired, some took early retirements and then just didn't return to the industry. And so it means that with the MRO industry are now having to try and find aircraft technicians, engine technicians, to try and get them back in. So that will still take a few years. But not only that, the Pratt & Whitney GTF groundings is also causing a bit more of a pressure on the MRO shops, especially as the powder metal issues that I'm sure has been very well publicized. Many aircraft have been grounded, engines have been removed off the aircraft, taken into the shop for inspection. If they're cleared, they can go back on the aircraft, absolutely fine. But if they do require any maintenance, then again, you do have some very long turnaround times at the moment. And we are also seeing that customers are looking at former engine options. One particular engine of interest you're looking at is the CFM 56-3 and the CFM 56-5A. There have been talks of Delta who have been extending their fleet into the next decade, purely because if they don't have the fleet, they're going to have to look at cutting down their capacity. So it's a very important space at the moment. So operators, and I think the key theme here is that operators are doing as much as they can to try and reduce the impact of their operations, to try and keep engines flying as much as possible. But the engine industry does have to compete with the fact that there are some very long turnaround times being reported. I think that, I have heard in some cases 8-9 months. I think on average we're seeing about 100 to 150 days. But again, it could be longer. There are some engine platforms where it could be shorter. So it really does depend. But I would say that the main key point here is that shop visit demand will still continue to increase.